G'day folks, today we're doing the human population. What's too many and what's not enough? Okay, so how many people should there be? When is the human population in a good spot? I don't have a thumbnail for this yet. I don't have a title for it yet. I don't even know how to word this question. But we're talking about the human population. All right, is there too many people or is there not enough people? And what's the deal with population collapse? Now, if you look at humanity's growth over time, it is just an exponential curve. However, the speed of that the growth of that exponential rate is variable, and sometimes it gets boosts. The invention of fire would have been one of them, but I'm not certain. In fact, I'm going to start with the invention of fire. As of before that, I don't know. Do you even want to call them modern day people? Without fire, it would have been a very natural way of living. It's so very distantly related to what we are now. So let's start with the invention of fire. Since then, two big things have really boomed the human population. One, the invention of agriculture and farming. Two, the Industrial Revolution. These two things have just tipped the exponential a great deal. And since the discovery of fire, the human race is really just so successful with a pack mentality, ability to manipulate objects, or just thumbs. Such a successful species, really just unrivaled, uncontended. We've really never faced an existential threat until we started making them for ourselves, which is, it'd be a bit of a flex if it wasn't so goddamn tragic. The human race has not faced really an existential threat up until the point where we made existential threats such as nuclear bombs, climate change, and advanced artificial intelligence. We'd never really faced an existential threat before. So farming in the Industrial Revolution made childbearing life safe and secure and raised the guarantee that your children would reach childbearing age, which obviously boomed the population and made people not only want to have kids, but made the kids actually reduce the mortality rate. So that's great. But if you zoom out, it is just an exponential curve. Now, what I'm about to say really should not be very controversial, but here we are. You cannot infinitely grow a population or anything else for that matter on a finite planet. You cannot infinitely grow a population or anything else for that matter on a finite planet. It doesn't work. That is the mathematical definition of the word finite. You cannot contest that. And it should be obvious, really, but we are still slashing and burning natural habitats in the name of infinite growth. So that is a lesson humanity still needs to learn, apparently. 7% of people who have ever lived are alive today. 7% of the people who have ever lived throughout humanity are alive today. That's a very big number. That's a very relevant statistic, but I know the enormity of it is easy to not quite wrap your head around. The enormity of it is a bit much because there have been a lot of people over such a vast period of time. It is kind of really difficult to wrap your head around that 7% number. I did want to compare it to like other species, although it's not really fair. Nothing is like humans. It's very, very, very unique, especially in a case study of like right now. Between like the last 20,000 years, humanity has really been its own unique case. Nothing is really comparable to it. Also, that 20,000 years is on a time scale of living things very small. It's a very short blip. and you can't really compare us to anything, although I would like to compare us to ants, because they have also inhabited every continent. They're also a very social and successful species. But less than 1% of the ants alive today are the ants that have lived throughout history. It's not even close. That is what a healthy, sustainable population looks like. Less than 1% of that population should be alive at any given moment throughout time. The fact that we're up to 7% is huge. That's enormous. Anyway, how many is too many? Well, on the surface of that question, you might want to ask, how much food can we grow? But I would dig a little deeper and ask the question, how much food should we grow? Because agriculture comes at the expense of natural and wild habitats that regulate the environment. They regulate air quality, water health, soil health, and a multitude of other things, pollination, so on. Now, if you were to just like trash the hippy dippy spiel and just kill everything except humans and pets and agriculture, aside from being massively vulnerable to disease, there will be no water retention. Wild habitats retain water like sponges. They're very good at that. Natural habitats are the reason that with wet seasons you don't instantly see floods, and with dry seasons you don't instantly see droughts. Although with the destruction of these habitats, you are going to see that. We are seeing that a lot. Natural habitats retain water. They're sponges. You need them to do that. And that's just one of many, many, many things that they do, as well as actually regulate disease. God, nature and wildlife does so much that you don't see or know about. Just because you don't eat it doesn't mean you don't need it. They regulate soil health, water filtration, the climate, pollination, so many things. And I'm not even a scientist. That's just me as an average Joe. That's off the top of my head. It should be abundantly obvious to everyone, really, why we need these natural wild ecosystems. The point is that aside from like housing and agriculture, humans need space for nature. It's a necessity. It's as essential as agriculture and housing. It's something we need to live comfortably on this planet. This should be obvious, but we are still deforesting natural ecosystems in the name of infinite growth. Now, how many is too many? How many people is too many people? This many. This many people is too many people. Until we find a way to mitigate biodiversity loss, this is too many people. We are far too destructive at this level with this many people at this point in technological advancement. We haven't figured it out yet. We need to figure it out. We need to mitigate biodiversity loss. We need to restore ecosystems, not plant trees, restore ecosystems before we boom our population any further. We can't keep growing or we lose that which keeps our air, soil, and water healthy and clean. So how many people is not enough people? Well, I mean, genetically 500 people can build a population without inbreeding. Okay, but nasty natural disasters swallow up thousands of people at a time. So 500 is not even close to a reasonable number. Also, you need to preserve knowledge and skills and distribute the society's workload throughout everyone equally. And up until really the Industrial Revolution, just under 1 billion people was kind of ideal for that. But we've created more essential disciplines that we cannot or should not lose. And that is STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Now, I am biased. I am biased to this because I personally almost religiously believe that if humanity does not exist to master the art of STEM disciplines, then what is the point? I think that is our purpose as a species is to master science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But I mean, on top of that, hypothetically, if we do master those things, we can just infinitely grow across other planets. But that's that's a future discussion. That's not a present reality. But we do need enough people that to maintain, sustain, pass on, and obviously improve upon STEM disciplines. So you probably need a population of at least 1 billion to maintain a post-industrial revolution globalized society. Now, I'm not a god, I'm not all-knowing, I'm not even a real scientist. But I shouldn't have to be like a scientist to explain all this. This is all very straightforward, this is all very elementary, this all makes a lot of sense. This isn't all that complicated, really. Anyway, the point is, I am not about to tell you how many people there should be. I'm not qualified to tell you how many people there should be on the earth. That is beyond my qualification as a musician. So, I'm not about to tell you how many people there should be on the earth. And I don't know how comfortable I'd be living in a world of 10 billion people. That's a very big milestone. And we're very quickly approaching it. I do hope population slows or slightly decreases by the time we hit 10 billion. I mean, I'll get to this later, but once we really figure out how to restore biodiversity loss and live alongside ecosystems, then we maybe can permit booming the population further. But 10 billion is not a stage. We're not even close to being able to sustainably house 10 billion people without doing it at the expense of future generations. Now, I haven't mentioned the term replacement rate or population collapse, which seems to be which both really seem to be trending terms amongst billionaires right now. So why is that? Well, I'll start by defining them. Replacement rate is 2.1 babies per couple. 2 to replace the parents, and that 0.1, or a third child every 10 couples to replace the children that don't make it to adulthood, which sounds sad. But the fact that medical science has wheedled that down to 0.1 is actually fucking incredible. That is a goddamn miracle. That's really good. Anyway, that's just to sustain the population. That's just to keep the population where it is. This population. This very big population that needs to decline a little bit in order to live with everything else that wants to live on this planet. So I'm not that worried about it. Now, population collapse is the idea that the population will fall. That's it. That's all it is. I'm not worried about the population falling. I think we have a very, 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 very long way to fall before we see any kind of problems or trouble. We could stand to lose a few people. I don't mean to sound mean. I'm not saying we should get rid of people. I'm just saying we shouldn't be making new people. But that's a personal opinion. I'm not going to tell other people how to live their lives. And again, I'm not God or all-knowing. So why are billionaires worried about this? Billionaires are worried about the population falling. Why are billionaires worried about this? Why do billionaires do the things that they do? Why do they think what they think? Why do they believe what they believe? Could it possibly all be summed up with one word? It's greed. It's greed. It's greed. It's because of greed. They don't want the population fall because they're greedy. I will explain. So the larger the population, the larger the pool of skilled, desperate workers you have. The more that population shrinks, the smaller that pool is, the less workers you have, the less skilled workers you have, and perhaps less desperation amongst them, and you have to pay them more. They're more valuable. That's why, because billionaires don't like paying people full wages. That's why. That's why. Because wealth to these people, it's not money or assets, it's power over other people. And the more people you have power over, the wealthier they feel. And so that is kind of, in a certain way, how they measure their wealth. They don't want to see the population fall, specifically because of that. It is gross. It's really gross. But it makes sense, judging these people by what they do and what they think and what they say. That makes a lot of sense. That is probably why they are concerned with population collapse. Now, if you're really worried about population collapse, there are 2 things you can do to boost the population. One is equality. People need the security. People need a secure place to live and the security of stable food prices. You need to restore the middle class. whether it be through redistribution of wealth, or at the very least, you need to advocate for a wealth tax, which none of these people are doing. So that is one way to boost the population. Although, admittedly, that on its own, like, look, that needs to happen. But I'm saying that on its own, with nothing else, is probably detrimental to the environment. That is a very superficial way to boost the population, and it does not help the environment. It probably actively harms it, repeating the last 100 years all over again. So that's not the only thing we can or should do to boost the population. You also need to restore biodiversity. We need to solar punk everything. We need to solar punk things. And I'm not talking about a fantasy. This isn't a fantasy. This is a necessary reality we need to come to. This is essential. If we don't do this, then we can't sustain a larger population. But once we do crack that, once we can live harmoniously with natural wild habitats, then that is another gate. Once that gate opens, that's like the gate of agriculture. The invention of farming and the Industrial Revolution were both gates that allowed our population to boom and sustain that. The next gate is going to have to be living harmoniously with nature. Up until we can do that, up until we can live harmoniously with ecosystems without destroying the environment or the climate or continuing biodiversity loss, we can't really grow. We shouldn't really grow the population. And if we do grow the population, it's coming at the cost of the future. It's not a sustainable growth. So that is necessary as well. That's all I got. Thank you for watching. I'm not telling you to have kids. I'm not telling you not to have kids. I would advise that you make sensible decisions or not. It's your life. Do what you want. I will tell you to do one thing. Don't listen to billionaires. They're full of shit.